Today's PD is entitled Addressing Student Basic Needs Beyond Academic Success. My name is Elizabeth Rincon. I am the Assistant Director for Staff Development and Program Support for ASAP ACE here in Central Office. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Before I get started and hand things over to our facilitators for today, I just want to cover a couple of logistics. As you can see, this is being recorded, so this will be shared with ASAP ACE staff, and there's going to be resources that are going to be discussed during today's presentation and some handouts that our presenters have already shared with me that will also be shared out with everyone as well. We ask that you remain on mute throughout the presentation. Obviously, there will be opportunities to share. So if you speak, just remember to go back on mute afterwards. Cameras are not necessary and are optional, so up to you. And I think just lastly, if any questions that that come up, feel free to utilize the chat box. I think we will have time towards the end to potentially cover some questions, and the presenters will probably be checking in throughout as well. So with that said, I think I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to hand it over to Nadej and Dr. Boone, and you guys can take us from here.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Good morning, everyone. On this fine Thursday, as we get ready to get into our weekend, today we are joined with Dr. Waleed Boone from the Transition Academy. Again, my name is Nadej Wade. I am from Medgar Evers College. I am an academic advisor, supplemental coordinator instructor, and peer mentor coach. And I've been with ASAP since 2015. Yes. Dr. Boone?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for letting me into your space today. My name is Dr. Waleed Boone. I'm also from Medgar Evers College. I am the student life manager at the Transitional Academy, where we serve students that are homeless, housing unstable, and food insecure. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. Can you move to the next slide, please? Okay. So today we'll be speaking about how we are ending homelessness for our CUNY college students. Homelessness and housing insecure college students' basic needs are not being met by CUNY. When students meet basic needs are not met, their grades are affected, class attendance decrease, housing and food insecurity increase. Lack of resources they hide in the shadows, and they distance themselves from students' activities because of depression and trauma. And this is taken from Moore 2005, NCFH 2011, and Hallett 2019. Thank you, Elizabeth. Next slide. Okay, and so we want to break the ice a little bit. And to get started, we're going to do a word cloud. So if everyone could either scan the QR code or use the website and the code 49948085. And we're going to share that. Code. And let me know when in the box when you have grabbed that. Okay. All right. So if you have access to it, please let me know that you're able to see it. Thumbs up sign. Got it. Okay, so in this word cloud, we want you to type a word or two of what do you think of when you hear the words academic insecurity. And you can begin typing. You can type one word, you can type up to 8 words or 8 phrases you can think of. Good. We see some things coming up on the screen: struggle, homelessness, food insecure. Keep it coming. And if you're having trouble accessing the Menti, you can also put it in the chat. Oh, uncertainty, frustration, fear of failure, depression, struggling, lack of confidence. These are all great things. Struggling academically, doubt. This is great. Hungry, lack of resources. This is great. Oh, I'm trying to catch up with everyone that's typing in there. That's awesome. Thank you. Unsafe. So we want you to hold on to these words. And these are some great words that we think of when we hear of academic insecurity. Lack of reach. Okay. Alone, they feel alone. They feel unsupported. There's depression. These are all important things to think of. Oh, we're adding more. Homelessness. Yep. These are great. My eyes are trying to catch up. This is awesome. Unseen, low self-esteem. Poor practices. This is great. Loneliness. This is great. Oh, this is a great one. Institutional failure. There's hesitation. Overwhelmed. These are all great things and all great words and phrases. So let's keep this in mind as we continue on to the next slide. Thank you all for participating. That was great. Oh, we also have some stuff in the chat: borderline, loss of aid. Perfect. Okay, Dr. Boone.
So some of the key terminologies that you're going to hear throughout the presentation are marginalized students, which means they are homeless, housing unstable, or food insecure. Homeless student is when a college student does not have a stable residence to sleep. Housing instability or insecurity student is when a college student is struggling to pay rent or utility bills. Food insecure student is when a college student does not have adequate nutritious food. Academic success is when a student graduates. Next slide. Some of our objectives that we hopefully that we can take away from here is how to identify a marginalized student, resources needed to support marginalized students, and best practices to connect ASAP students to resources. Next slide, please. So I look at homeless students as being a social justice issue. Social justice, as we're going to define our terminologies as well. Social justice is fairness as it's displayed in society, which includes fairness in healthcare, employment, housing, and more. In a socially just society, human rights are respected. Discrimination is not allowed to exist. Next slide. On some campuses, the administration is having difficulties identifying students that are faced with the hardship. As you can see from this quote, because there's not a large collection of data on these students who are experiencing homelessness on our campuses, people don't realize that they exist, which we know they do exist. Next slide, please. As we can see from the supported data here that was taken in January 2020, as we can see, 62,679 people slept in NYC shelters each night. Now, when you see the numbers here, it's very mind-blowing when it's 21,783 when it comes to kids and families, 21,886 when it comes to adults and families, and over 19,000 with single adults. There's approximately 1.5 million Americans that experience homelessness each year, which can have a serious and lasting effects on their health, well-being, and development. There are college students amongst those 1.5 million. However, communities and families are impacted differently. Intersectionality theory has helped me to examine the disparities, in which I will show in another slide when I break it down. Next slide, please. Those that are on call here today or on Zoom, academic advisors, advising students. Students is in plain sight. They are the first ones on campus, the last ones to leave. They distance themselves from all student activities. They sleep in the library or in the classrooms. They walk around with big bags. Sometimes at events, just pay attention. When certain events and there are food around, you see students coming at the end just because they might be food insecure or homeless. Next slide, please. This is another data that was taken in April 2019, which is a study of 86,000 students at 123 2- and 4-year institutions across the USA. 45% of the 86,000 was food insecure. 56% of them was housing insecure, and 17% of them was homeless. Next slide. And CUNY was part of that study. A separate study was taking place in 2019, also with CUNY students, with 22,000 CUNY students who took the survey that are faced with hardships. These students are living in unsafe places. The City University of New York has a high percentage of students whose basic needs are not being met. And I'm sure you and I serve these students. The reality has a negative impact on these students' academics. According to the recent study, as I just mentioned, of the 22,000 students, which revealed that 55% of those 22,000 were housing unstable, 48% was food insecure, and 14% was homeless. Another study that I read mentioned that CUNY seems to believe that food insecurity is the primary catalyst that impacts students' academia. However, homelessness and housing instabilities affects their academia as well. The general problem is students that are experiencing housing insecurity or homelessness will not remain enrolled in college if they do not receive emotional and academic support. Limited access of support for homeless and housing insecure students can have an impact whether they graduate or withdraw from their classes. I must say, CUNY has done a great job addressing food insecurity. However, administrators have to understand food insecurity is just a part of the problem. Homelessness and housing instability has to be addressed as well. Despite being a leader in addressing food insecurity on CUNY campuses, CUNY needs to begin addressing homelessness and housing instability among their college students. Now that CUNY has this data that support that students here are homeless or housing insecure, that overlaps with food insecurity, because you cannot separate food insecurity from homelessness. You cannot address a homeless student with just food. Once they have their food, where are they going to go after that? 7 in 10 CUNY students were experiencing homelessness, housing instability, or food insecurity during this survey, according to the report. If CUNY decides to ignore the statistics of those 22,000 survey students and those hiding in the shadows whose basic needs are not being met, it could have a detrimental effect on the student lives because they are not being afforded the same opportunity to achieve academic success as stable students. And a university retention and graduation rate will decline. Homeless and housing insecure students believe a college degree is their future to living a stable life and becoming self-sufficient. Next slide, please.
Oh, but before we continue, just very quickly, of the show of hands, how many of you are surprised to see those statistics? and to know 7 out of 10 CUNY students fall into this category. So that means out of 10 students you see in a day, 7 of them could fall into that. Right. So that means our students are literally going, as some of you have put in the word cloud, and as some of the things that Dr. Boone has said, some of our students are going unseen. And somebody says most institutions address the hunger, but not the instability. And KCC's Mr. Rodriguez said he's not surprised at all. So some of us may come across this a lot in our campuses, and some of us may not. And so that's why I kind of also see the hands of being surprised of the statistics. We live in an urban society. We live in an urban community. So just know that these are some of the issues that we're going to, that are going to come across our campuses and our offices.
So this is the breakdown of the statistics I just spoke about. As you can see, research has revealed that racial minorities, particularly African Americans, are unfairly impacted more by housing insecurity and homelessness than their counterparts. The disparities are clearly visible among CUNY students whose basic needs are not being met. The survey here that was administered to the 22,000 CUNY students, 64% Black or African Americans was housing insecure, 5 points higher than Hispanics or Latinx, or 20% and 20% higher than white or Caucasians. In order for us to address this wicked problem, which I call homelessness, we must seriously engage the way in which race influences policy, creation, reform, and implementation. Homelessness and housing insecurity occur when poverty and racial discrimination intersect, according to research. It is time we give a voice to the voiceless students who are forced to withdraw from college because their basic needs are not being met. These students, as I mentioned earlier, view a higher education degree as a step out of poverty. Next slide, please. We have a proposed solution for the other campuses, which is taking place right here at Medgar Evers College. The Transitional Academy, for those who have not heard of the Transitional Academy here at Medgar Evers College. Ending homelessness for CUNY College students and providing basic needs as they pursue academic success is not an easy task or a quick fix. In order to end this wicked problem, you first have to be able to identify the students who are homeless or housing insecure. It's often hard to identify them because they hide in the shadows to avoid embarrassment. They don't want people to know that they're going through these struggles. This is why the Transitional Academy was created. Because oftentimes that a student that is faced with these hardships are living in unsafe places, which can cause trauma. When a person is dealing with trauma and they have to keep telling their story over and over again, it can re-traumatize that individual. For example, CUNY has a variety of programs that cater to students' basic needs, but they have to be enrolled in a specific program to receive those services, like an ASAP. So for example, ASAP gives out Metro cards to students to help them get back and forth to school. But what if that student was dealing with homelessness as well? That student had to be referred to another office to seek services. So the student done told the ASAP advisor of what they're going through. Now they have to go to the next office and tell that same story. So the Transition Academy is a single point of entry, whereas all their services or all their needs are met. And if we can't meet them internally, we refer them to external partners. And most of the times, a lot of these programs, as I mentioned, it's not good to be operating in silos. However, not ASAP at Medgar Evers College, and where we work in collaborative to make sure our students' basic needs are met. The Transition Academy has made resources easily accessible for marginalized students by creating this single point of entry office. in which the resources are centralized in one place. By centralizing these resources, it helps the students avoid visiting these multiple offices. The Transitional Academy is guided by system theory to help illustrate and explain the relationship among inputs, activities, outputs, and outcomes. In order to eradicate the wicked problem of homelessness among CUNY students, there must be a collaborative effort from CUNY, community-based organizations, the community, educational, and government agencies. For those who are not familiar with the terminology system theory is just a concept that emphasizes the significance of developing relationships and interacting with various systems to understand social issues. It is essential to foster relationships with community organizations that are doing similar work. Next slide. So our mission at the Transitional Academy is pretty much the Transitional Academy offers students a variety of essential services, which are centralized in one office. These services comprise of access to food, job placement, emergency clothing, case management, assistance with transportation, storage space, referrals to on-campus services, community-based organization, and government agencies, etc. Our goal, the Transitional Academy seeks to fulfill its mission through active interaction with community representatives in the campus internal programs and services like ASAP. Next slide, please. This is what the Transition Academy does. Meet Rachel. This is a real story, just changed the name. Meet Rachel. Rachel was a homeless student with a child here at Medgar Evers College. She was referred to the Transitional Academy for services because the professor noticed that she was sleeping in class often. Rachel was a good student, but her grades began to plummet. Rachel was referred to the Transitional Academy. We did an intake. So once the student comes, we do an intake. We're able to assess the student. We have a holistic approach because oftentimes we tell students, when you come to the Transitional Academy, you might come from one thing, but after we do this intake, most likely we'll be helping them out with 2 or 3 issues that are faced with. So Rachel came and did an intake. Services that she received, we gave her a Metro card so she could get back and forth to school, a 30-day Metro card. We gave her food vouchers to the cafeteria when the cafeteria was open. We gave her food vouchers to Food Town, which is a supermarket in the area. We also gave her food vouchers to the Fresh Vibe Market, which offers fresh produce at a reduced price for our students as well as the surrounding community. We refer Rachel to the Department of Homeless Services, which PATH, which is in the Bronx, where she had to go do an intake there. We also refer Rachel to a realtor because we do work closely with realtors and brokers. When Rachel get referred to the Department of Homeless Services, before she go or call this place, whereas we have direct contact with or email is sent with someone there. So when Rachel go, they are aware that she's being directly referred from the Transitional Academy. Rachel sits down with the Department of Homeless Services and do their intake, which is almost a half a day. After she is assessed there, Rachel goes to conditional shelter. So conditional shelter pretty much holds the people pending an investigation to see if you're really homeless. So it could take up to 14 days. Once it was determined that Rachel was faced with homelessness, she then transferred to a transitional shelter, where she begins to meet with social workers to assess to see if she qualified for SNAP, housing subsidies, and other services. Rachel was fortunate to receive, within 2 months, she was fortunate to receive a housing subsidy. So remember I told you I refer Rachel to a broker at the beginning. So once Rachel received that housing subsidy, she follows up with the realtor. Rachel receives her first apartment. We also work with our academic advisors here because when people are going through those hardships, sometimes they're not able to focus on school. So working with the advisor, being able to contact the professors and bringing them into the loop, we all there to serve the student. So advocacy, met with the professors. The professors allow Rachel to submit past due assignments. So Rachel went from being a homeless college student all the way to graduating. Next slide, please. Here's what we call collective impact initiative. I like to define these terminologies for those that might not know. Collective impact initiative approach calls for multiple organizations or entities to abandon individuals' agenda in favor of a single common agenda. This requires all participants to have a common understanding of the problem and a mutual agreement on how to solve it. So all these entities here I work with, we all have a common goal, whether it's a client or whether it's a student. We want the person to succeed and be self-sufficient. But it starts with basic needs have to be met. So when we think about basic needs, we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The physiological needs have to be met, which is breathing, food, water, shelter, clothing, and sleep. Safety and security is needed. Health, employment, property, family, social ability, love and belonging, friendship, family, intimacy, sense of connection, self-esteem, confidence, achievement, respect of others, self-actualization, morality, creativity, acceptance. So students need all of this to achieve academic success. Next slide, please. Some of the key benefits when a student comes to Transition Academy after they are assessed and they do the intake, it's a safe, confidential space for students to come to. As I mentioned, they get the food vouchers. We also have a food pantry here they have access to 3-4 days a week. And for those who are not MEGA employees and that are at other community schools, your students can also visit our pantry on Wednesday from 10 to 2. We offer a variety of different items here, from fresh produce, fresh vegetables, fresh fruit, frozen meat like chicken, fish, halal chicken, turkey, and also the non-perishable items like peanut butter, tuna fish, and stuff. We offer Metro cards. It can go from 30-day Metro card to a 7-day unlimited Metro card. We help students find jobs, housing placement, one-on-one with a social worker here. We offer them storage space. They have access to our computers if they want to print something or they want a house search on their own or apartment search. We offer workshops throughout the semester where we collaborate with the Department of Homeless Services. We collaborate with Canva. We collaborate with HPD, Food Bank, and other external partners. We offer student stipends via the Petrie grant that all CUNY campuses should receive. Gently use and new clothing, because oftentimes you will find students that might have one outfit. So we ask them, do you have enough clothing to feel comfortable in the class? And you will be surprised where they would say, no, not only do I don't have enough clothing, but my children. So not only do the Transition Academy serve the student, we also serve the family, because without serving the family, you're not really helping to resolve the issue that's going on. So you have to be able to serve not only the student, but also the family as well. We offer Clean Right cards to the local Clean Rights around here, direct referrals to external agencies outside of Medgar Evers College. Next slide, please. Now, I laugh at this one here. So this is the organizational chart when it's properly staffed when it comes to Transitional Academy. You need a director, a social worker, a housing specialist, employee specialist, data analysis, food pantry manager, social work interns, psychology interns, student volunteer. The reason why I laugh because you all gonna understand where I'm coming from for this one. We all understaffed. I wear the hats of everything above, except for social work interns, psychology interns, and student volunteer. However, this is not sustainable if you don't have a full staff. Transition Academy was established in 2017, and I have been wearing all the hats above. This is, to me, is not a 9-to-5 job, nor is it a 5-day-a-week job. I'm always on call to serve and assist students. Next slide, please.
Before we continue, I just want to give Dr. Boone a quick shout out because all throughout the pandemic, he was indeed on campus while, a lot of us were practicing COVID safety. He recognized that the community, the campus community, and the community at large around Medgar needed the assistance of Transitional Academy, and Dr. Boone was definitely on the front lines, on the grounds, on the campus, and he's also there on the weekends sometimes as well too. So when it's just, it seems like a one-person show. He's been able to do it all, but we know that with other campuses, the teams are also small. We have to find ways to help each other out and find ways to shine the light on funding that's needed for these important departments.
Thank you for that. Just to add on to that, as my colleague mentioned, during the pandemic, Medgar Evers College, for those who don't know, the community is part of establishing Medgar Evers College or fighting for a college here in Central Brooklyn. So once the pandemic hit and we began to become aware that our community's members was losing jobs, they was faced with food insecurity as well, what we did was we extended our food pantry to the community once a month. So if you know anyone that's in the community, anyone's invited, we serve our community every last Tuesday from 3 to 5. And same thing is served fresh produce, non-perishable items. Starting this month, we will be serving our community twice a month, every first Friday. Not this Friday because we know it's Good Friday. However, we're going to be serving them next Friday. And after that, it'll be every first Friday and every last Tuesday of the month. The first Friday would be from 11 to 1. So it's our way of giving back to our community. Can never forget where we come from. I'm always like that Sankofa bird. I'm always looking back and want to bring people along and also be able to assist. Next slide, please. So generally what happens is I call my intern staff because that's the only staff I really have. But if I have fully staffed, how it would roll out. In order to assess students, training needs to happen. Training in CUNY first. So you need to know where our students are at academically. So we check up on, see if they enroll for the following semester, making sure their financial aid is straight, making sure there's no holes on their account. We also offer or refer our interns for food safety training to work at or intern at our food pantry. You need to know when to discard food. We also do SNAP application here in the office. So I sent interns to the Department of Human Services Administration to get trained into SNAP. We also do advocacy for the SNAP applicants. So I can follow up with their cases. I also have direct contact with those that's in HRA that have been very, very helpful in helping our students get through or letting them know what they need to do if they don't qualify. Next slide, please. So this is the Transitional Academy model, TAC. Interacting with students in a sensitive manner. We know these issues are very sensitive, and as I mentioned, these students hide in the shadows. So it have to be different campaign strategies to get them from the shadows so they can get the resources, so they can stay on track, graduate on time, and improve their living conditions, which I'm going to get to shortly. So this is an acronym. The first T stands for trust. Gain student trust so they no longer have to hide in the shadows, which will allow the Transitional Academy to assess their pressing issues. You have to gain their trust. They don't want their business spread on the campus. You have to ensure them that, you can trust us with the information. Advocacy. We advocate on behalf of marginalized students to ensure their basic needs are being met so they can stay on track, graduate on time, and improve their living condition. The C stands for confidentiality, as I mentioned. Assure students that information shared is confidential. Transparency, the last T. Ensure students that the Transition Academy will be transparent in all decisions, whether it's updates, recommendations related to their case. Next slide. So some of the funding sources that we utilize, and it's not limited to this, in kind, donations from supermarkets, clothing stores to assist the students. As everybody know, the foundation, the Carol and Milton Petrie Student Emergency Grant Fund, we access government grants, EFAT for those that's on here that have food pantries, government grants, you have TFAP, more government grants, city council discretionary funding, individual donation like Giving Tuesday, and then others would just donate to the Transition Academy to support our students. Next slide, please. When we think about sustainability of the Transition Academy, as I mentioned, at the moment, I don't think it's sustainable when you have one person running an operation. We need personnel, but we have to be able to talk and engage with the students here on campus because every semester we get a new batch of students. So you have to be able to talk and engage and find out what's going on with them so we won't lose them, so they won't fall through the crack. So you can be able to assess, prioritize, which I try to do best, where I don't try to overwhelm myself. I have a rigid schedule. As my colleague said, sometimes I'm here on Saturdays, just to make sure I serve weekend students, because oftentimes weekend students don't benefit from the services because the offices is closed. I'm also here in the evenings to serve those evening students. Yeah, we know some offices have late night sometimes, but however, just think about it. If you open to 6:45, some of our students are working. So they get here maybe 5:30 and they headed to class. So how do that benefit them? You have to be committed to this work. I'm gonna be frank, not everybody's cut out for this. You have to have the passion for this type of work here. You have to be very much committed to the students. I often say there's two types of employees. You have servants, which I was taught, and you have survivors, I was taught. The survivors are those individuals that when 5 o'clock come, if a student knock on their door with an urgency, they say, send me an email and I'll see you tomorrow. You never know what that student is going through. You could have saved that student life. But you say, call me tomorrow, send me an email. That servant is that individual who don't mind staying that 5 minutes. Just listen to the student. See what's going on with the student. You could be able to resolve a problem within 5 minutes or refer them somewhere. But they might just need someone to listen to them, but you just brush them off. So that servant is going to be there to serve that student. Collaborating with other officers on campus, knowing that one person, one center, one office cannot do it alone. You have to work as a team. We all should have the same goal, is to get our students to the finish line to graduate and attain that degree. We have to be able to measure the services we offering. How many people you serve? What was the benefits? What was the outcome of it? So we can report that back to the administration, because we all need funding. And without the numbers or the data, it's going to be hard to advocate for funding. Education. You might have staff and faculty members that might see a student in the classroom and they're not doing the work. But they think that because they're not doing the work, they're being lazy. That student might be going through something. So we have to be able to educate a person. Let's not write our students off when you see they being despondent. Let's pull them aside. Let's ask them if everything is going okay. Communication is key in any relationship, because if you don't know how to communicate, articulate yourself, you're going to misconstrue what a person is saying or a person's behavior. Next slide, please. Potential challenge and alternatives strategies. As I mentioned before, students might be unwilling to self-disclose if they're going through these hardships. Students hiding in the shadows. Every day we out there tabling and campaigning. So the alternative strategies to the challenges is we develop campaigns to recruit students to the Transitional Academy. We table to hand out flyers. One of my best ones is going into the classroom, giving presentations, because you're not singling anyone out. You let them know about the services, what you offer, and you leave in your name, your number, your contact pretty much. And every time my interns and I go into the classrooms, it's almost guaranteed either 2 people follow us out or our email is flooded with issues that students is going through, the hardship, whether it's homelessness, whether it's food insecurity, whether they just housing unstable. Some students might not want to come to the office. Utilize Zoom. We utilize social media. We send emails and the phone to communicate with our students. Next slide, please.
So we're going to stop here and listen to a student's testimony. But before we get there, I wanted to share something important in terms of funding and sustainability that we want to highlight. So speaking to what Dr. Boone was saying before, the community is what supported the growth development of Medgar. One thing I learned about a couple of weeks ago, sitting in the local pizza shop and having a student come in and using a voucher. And I thought, hold on, we don't have, because at the moment we don't have a working cafeteria. And so the concern when we started coming back to campus after reintegrating after COVID was, where were these students going to eat? And I remember the students saying that they had a voucher. And I said, this is great. So one thing Dr. Boone did do was build partnerships with local businesses in the community, restaurants, and provided students vouchers. And through that partnership, so the student can now purchase food, because we're trying to supplement what we don't have, but we still recognize there's a need. Students need food. So any campus that is surrounded by local businesses, restaurants, shops like that, and are willing to support the college can build that partnership and at the same time help a student out. So I thought that was really important to know that we can also get our community involved in where there's missing gaps. So especially if it's late at night and the cafeteria is closed and there is, let's say a spot right across the street, a student can have a voucher and go there and get something to eat if the cafeteria is closed and they still have evening or evening classes. So we want to keep in mind and just utilizing our resources and being a little creative of what we can do within our campus community. Okay, so now what we're going to do is share. I'm going to share a brief testimony from a student.
And this is a former ASAP student.
Please let me know.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, because for me, you came through. It's hard for you to be in college and work towards achieving good grades and still have to worry about food on your table, clothes on your back, transportation, a roof over your head, you name it. Transition Academy was able to help me. Okay, when I needed childcare services, I was able to be pointed in the right direction. I was able to have my food stamp application filled with assistance. During the pandemic, food, I was able to achieve food, so much food that I needed assistance to carry it. Okay, cleaning supplies. And they were so organized, friendly, caring. And Mr. Walik, thank you for always remembering our conversations. Thank you for always stopping and asking me, how's my day? How's my classes? How's my kids? And following up on our conversations that we had before. Thank you for being there just to hear me come and tell you, oh, Mr. Walik, I passed all my classes. I passed all my classes. You know, because you are that type of person that take your time to listen and appreciate the person that's up in front of you. Thank you, and continue your program. Maybe one day I can come back and also help give back, because I really, really appreciate everything that you did for me. I don't think I would have been able to be as successful as I have been without your program. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Wow, how many times can you count the word? Can you hear thank you and the gratitude that the student has for all that Transition Academy and Dr. Boone has, done. I think that was great. I'm trying to hold back my emotions. Next slide, Elizabeth. Oh, and that is the still shot of the student.
So some of our key metrics that we utilize are, we try to increase our external partners every year, whether it's community-based organization, educational and government agencies. As you're going to see in another slide, 60% of Transition Academy students graduate. We ensure students have access to food. We ensure each student served is gainfully employed if they're looking for job opportunities. At least 73% of our students are retained, a retention rate for the next semester. If a student come in here and they tell us they're homeless, we ensure stable housing for students within 24 hours. Each semester, we serve more than 100 students each semester. Next slide. Stakeholders engaged and committed. So in order for the Transition Academy to exist and work, you need stakeholders, of course, that are engaged and committed. So of course, internal, we have our leadership that's always on board, always very supportive to make sure our students get what they need. You also need students. Students have to be willing to accept the resources. And what has happened is students refer students now. We need the professors to be able to refer the students here if they're able to identify that a student is going through struggles. Some of our external partners, which is much more than this. Food Bank has been a very supportive over the years. as mentioned, the New York City Department of Social Services, realtors, and landlords. However, you also want to be able to understand what's going on other campuses and even in other states. So advisory board is very important. So you're able to share ideas, understanding what best practices is working out in California, what is working out in New Orleans, because they might be doing something different that we're not different, that we can utilize and incorporate into helping our students here on campus. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the Transitional Academy was established in 2017. So this is the matriculation and graduation rates of the students throughout the years. So as you can see, in 2018, we served 62 students because that was pretty much the first year in which 32 graduated. 48% was retained, and so on. As you see, there's no numbers yet for 2023 because haven't got that data yet for the fiscal year of 2023. Next slide, please. And I will turn it over to my colleague.
Thank you so much, Dr. Boone. So just a quick pulse check. On a scale of 1 to 5, how many of you utilize the resources similar to what we have, similar to Transition Academy? How many of you utilize these resources on your campus? And you could put it in your chat. I'll give guys a minute.
Can you repeat the question, sorry?
That's okay. On a scale of 1 to 5, how many of you utilize the resources similar to this on your campus? Right, we see a various range. So the next question is, oh, I'm gonna let that keep going. So we have a single stop in Hostos, and we have some people who utilizes the services on a scale of 1 to 5, 4. So it seems like we have these services on these campus. I think it's great that we continue to promote, continue to utilize, continue to support in any way possible. And one way we do that in ASAP is through our connection. So just a brief background, I've actually known Dr. Boone prior to working at Medgar. I was working in a private clinical setting as a social worker clinician, and that's where I met Dr. Boone. And then I ended up working at Medgar Evers College, and there's the organic meeting of the minds. Next slide, please. So one way, and Dr. Boone has spoken about this a lot, is direct referrals. One thing we make notice during our orientations or our institutes, our summer and our winter institute, is we let the students know of the important resources that we have on campus. So we let students know that if they are facing food insecurity, housing insecurity, anything of that notion, that we have the Transition Academy on campus. And we directly refer them. So advisors, we pick up the phone, we let Dr. Boone know that we have a student. After we explain to the student the resources and what is available to them, and we ask permission to let Dr. Boone know, we make that direct referral and follow up with an email. So that way it's on record that we have a student and they will be following up with Dr. Boone. So in addition to letting the students know where Dr. Boone is, we also provide them with the contact information. Why? Students may have apprehension because it's still reaching out for help. And some of our students don't know what that means to reach out for help. So maybe they want to do it on their own. Sometimes they need that autonomy and that ability to reach out, that helping hand. So we also provide them with that contact information and location. And once that has happened, Dr. Boone notifies, Dr. Boone is notified notified in preparation for the visit. He usually starts off with an assessment, so he likes to get all of that together before a student comes to his office. Next slide. So currently, at the moment, we have 18 students from ASAP who receive services from Transition Academy. And these are the services that they receive. And I know earlier on in the presentation, Dr. Boone listed a plethora of other things. But as of right now, these are the important resources that our ASAP students at Medgar Evers College have reached out to him about, which is housing, food assistance, which is great because, like he said, we have the fresh, we have produce that are given out by our pantry, and we also have food that they can take home to their family as well. Clothing, laundry assistance, employment assistance, and they also have a case manager. Something that I do want to add is other workshops that the Transition Academy provide are resources such as professional development and financial literacy, because they're going to be, the goal is to have them be independent and live on their own. We want to make sure that they understand how to manage their finances. Some of them do end up getting, may end up getting refunds from financial aid, from financial aid. We want to also ensure that they know how to utilize them. Of course, we're not telling them how to spend their money, but we want to give them that knowledge and information that this is what you can do when you have your funding. And when they start working, how they can manage their money as well. Next slide. And so I think we have a live testimony at the moment.
I'm not sure, Nadej, if the student is here yet. So I don't see them on the participant list. So if you want to, maybe go through your other slides, and then we'll just circle back.
Sure.
Okay.
Most definitely. Okay. And then we're going to continue. And so some of the ways that we also have the connection between ASAP and Transition Academy is through engaging events. So this semester we've been greatly flooded with all these events from the Transition Academy, such as a concert that they held, I believe 2 or 3 weeks ago. And what was great about that is for our students to become more involved, more engaged with the department, the TA department, as well as the campus community, was that there were tickets that were donated. Now, I, being the point person, was able to share this information to the department, to the students, and we've actually had students who took advantage of the fact that people were willing to donate, and they actually had an opportunity to attend the concert. Heavy promotion is done throughout the program by myself, the advisors, our peer mentors, our administrative coordinator, to ensure that students are aware of these resources. Other events that were definitely funneled, advertised in our department. They had a community baby shower for our expecting mothers. And this was in conjunction with the local, I believe it was 71st precinct. And we are having a upcoming Mother's Day or pre-Mother's Day celebration, because we know in our ASAP department, we don't just have traditional students, we have non-traditional students, and a lot of them are maybe single mothers. So we also want to give them that level of support. And so those are some of the things that we definitely promote in our department. Next slide.
So Nadej, I think the student is here.
Oh, awesome.
So if you wanna, we can backtrack.
We can go back one more slide. So one part I thought would be very impactful was not just to have another video, but to have an actual student to give their testimony about the importance of having the supportive programs and department. And the student is here today. And so I would just like to say the student's name, and they will take it from there. So we have Eternity Council. She is a C16S student, so she's new. And I will give her the floor. Welcome, Eternity.
Hi, everyone. But so I'm a little nervous, but having both ASAP and Transition Academy being affiliated with both ASAP and Transition Academy has moved me, because I mean, oh, sorry, I'm a little nervous. Both programs host workshops. Well, ASAP hosts workshops that help the students in terms of like resume building or like peer mentoring, and they're virtually and in person. And they also have great advisors like Nadej. Since first meeting her, she's helped me with ASAP in terms of figuring out what route that I want to take in terms of like, I want to get a psychology degree. So she has helped me with that, making sure that I'm on top of my studies, and asked me about classes. And for Transition Academy, Dr. Boone walked into actually my psychology class, and he told about the services that Transition Academy provides, which is like housing. They have we have a food pantry. They also help with like setting up food stamps, and also they have like meetings as well in terms of fair housing, knowing your rights as a tenant. But yeah, they both ASAP and Transition Academy has helped me in terms of like, being a more proficient student, not having to struggle or worry about, not having the certain materials that I need for school, like books or, food or things of that sort. But yeah.
Eternity. So the other connection is there. I made sure Eternity got into the right psychology class that Dr. Boone visited.
Yep.
And so she was able to get that information and receive services from Transition Academy.
Yep.
So as you see, she's smiling. She's obviously, happy with the services that were provided, and that she got connected to 2 great departments.
Definitely.
Thank you, Eternity.
Thank you for sharing, Eternity.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you.
Enjoy your spring break.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you for receiving her, everyone. She's a wonderful student. And of course, again, it just speaks to hearing live, from their mouths, from their lips, exactly how beneficial having these supportive services and programs are for them. Okay. And we're going to fast forward one more slide. Right. And so further connection that we have with the Transition Academy is through civic engagement. This actually started when ASAP at MEC started their Bachelor Extension program, I believe is 2017. And we realized one of the components, we had the career component, of course, still. One of the components we needed to infuse into the students was civic engagement, especially when it came to volunteering, because when they go on to grad school, they needed some sort of experience on their resume and in their application that they are engaged with the community, because as we know, students are not just grades. They're about what kind of involvement do they have in their surrounding community, whether it's local or even international. So we partnered with Transition Academy. I've connected our career specialist, Christina Chawla, and Dr. Boone together so that they can collaborate. And anytime there's events occurring and Dr. Boone needs volunteers, it is something that we announce to the ASAP department. The students are welcome. And the thing is, we also extended out to associate degree students, because it just shouldn't start when they're in their bachelor's degree. They should have an idea, especially when they start school or even after a year, because we want them settled, just to know what it means to be civically engaged in their campus community. And as for MEGR, the community at large. And some of the places that the students have volunteered at were conferences and events, workshops that he may have, the pantry. And one aspect to being a peer mentor coach was getting that peer mentor involved with Transition Academy. So what we have is a mental health initiative in our department. And with that, we have our peer mentor who is going to be working with Dr. Boone and creating this extensive resource archive of noting all the different resources on the campus and externally. So it's just at their fingertips when they come in. So it's collaborating with Dr. Boone's interns and with Dr. Boone himself to make sure that students are aware of all the resources free available to them, and to show them that we've got their back in many ways. Medgar has their back in many ways, that they do not have to go unseen. They do not have to go homeless. They do not have to go hungry. They do not have to go ignored. So that is one of the connections that I'm looking to build up more in the future, is that peer mentor connection, and having them also advertise for the Transition Academy. Let me see. And as of right now, I am the point person, but what I would like to see happen is that it is more student-centered and student-focused and student-driven, so that the students and the leaders that come through can help make that connection stronger and talk amongst their peers. Because sometimes students don't want to hear from their advisors, they don't want to hear from staff, but hearing from their peers that there's this great department on campus who has all these resources, has their fresh fruits and vegetables, has pantry items, has housing information. Sometimes that comes across easier and more palatable than when it comes from a staff. I think the next slide. And we're going to the social impact.
So we're going to speak about social impact and what the Transition Academy does. Transition Academy promotes racial and social justice to level the playing field for marginalized Medgar Evers College students, to give them an equal opportunity as stable students to achieve academic success. We make sure no student is discriminated against based on their race, sexual orientation, creed, religion, culture, or color. Next slide. And just some final thoughts. I'm sure some of you all are familiar with the McKinley-Vento Act. The McKinley-Vento Act ensures educational right and protection for homeless children and youth, which was established in 1987. However, this is for K through 12. What about the student who was benefiting from this McKinley-Vento Act while they was in high school? So most of the time we see students that was benefiting from this act. So when you see students that's telling me, or they mention to me that they asking a bus driver for a ride to get back and forth to school, they hop in the turnstile or they ask for a swipe, that's discouraging. Why would a student want to continue to go through that every day? So we really consider ourselves the unofficial bridge to the McKinley-Vento Act when students do come to Medgar Evers College, and we try to provide similar services that the McKinley-Vento Act offers. However, our money in as long as that act, but we make dues make. And the specific problem that the Transition Academy addresses aligns with current educational opportunity programs that have been implemented on community campuses. And as we know, the objective of educational opportunity program is to increase retention and graduation rates of first generation and low income students. Not only do marginalized students need academic and financial support, we got to remember they also need social and emotional support as well. And that's it for me. Ned, you got something that you want to add?
So just remember, a working partnership with these supportive programs and departments is integral. Like, I believe it was, I'm going right back. Chris said in his earlier on comments, COVID has highlighted everything that was already there. It just highlighted it even more. So as our students are coming back to campus, we're reaching that 90%. We don't know if we may reach 100. We want to be sure to have these solid connections, these solid relationships with our departments such as Transition Academy. I feel like someone has single stop on their campus to ensure that our students are getting the academic success that they need and overall success, because we see that there are more students than we probably realize who are having these challenges, and we just need to be a little bit more intentional with how we help them navigate these perils. And granted, sometimes they do not want to share automatically, but going back to a slide where Dr. Boone said one of the ways that they get students in the door is build trust, is building that rapport with them. Once we do our institutes and you have your first meeting, it is so important to build that rapport with them so we can, so they can feel safe in our space, just to let us know that they're having these challenges and that we have a supportive team member on our side, such as, you know, someone like Dr. Boone on your campus. What I would do, any questions or comments? So just want to let everybody know that this connection with ASAP and Transition Academy started when I took over the peer mentor coach. So it's very fresh and very new, and we're still learning and growing together in this partnership. And it's the whole idea of getting our students involved civically with the Transition Academy, because they do so much on campus, is actually being monitored by career specialists, especially on the bachelor extension side. And they have check-ins every so often to make sure students are doing their volunteer services. I have students emailing me, can you send me the email about that? So I know that they're working together hand in hand. Berkus?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Thank you so much. You know, I'm sorry, but I'm a true believer that our higher powers work in mysterious ways. I was late to the training because I'm dealing actually with a student in a situation such as the one described. And my question is, because we are an academic program, sometimes we're limited as to how much involvement we can really participate on in terms of activities like this for our students. Most of my role is in advocacy, and you know, once the student is close or an advisor, and I know of a resource, I think this is an excellent resource for all academic advisors to know about. I wish really that the Transition Academy would be in every college of CUNY, because what I'm facing is that the students are categorized. So they're not seeing as a whole student at times, that particularly the student in my case is a vet. And I'm not an academic advisor, I'm a career specialist. But through the interaction with the advisor and then developing that trust with the student, I was able to get to some of the bottom of the situations that the student is facing. Then my limitation is, but she's a vet, refer to vet services, and now that I find out of these resources, something that I'm going to advocate for them to start to look at students in the whole approach, as this is an individual, a human being, a person, all these labels that we apply, but they have goals, they have dreams. And honestly, my fear is that if this kind of information is not spread throughout the colleges, that we could be ruffling feathers and then the students not get service. So any suggestions on how to advocate for services holistic like yours to be presented, you know, to the whole university, to come to board of trustees, something like that, so that they know that this exists. You know, that there's a saying that there's, you know, the central office is surrounded by reality. And sorry for those who live in central office as a workspace, but these are the kind of things we face on a daily basis in our interactions with students. And sometimes, you know, people in other areas don't realize how much they struggle. So if you can give me any suggestions, I would gladly take.
So thank you for that comment. And so the goal is hopefully that, you know, Transition Academy could possibly be replicated on all campuses. However, as I alluded to earlier, you have to be ready to grind and put in the work. It's not just going to happen overnight. So this took mileages and time to build myself with interns. So I can never say that this was built on my own. Without interns, there would be no transitional academy. And the goal is to bring it to the board of trustees and let them know what Transitional Academy is doing at Medgar Evers College, and maybe possibly having it on other campuses. But I think what have to happen is maybe having an internal meeting with all the other services that provide basic needs for students on campus, because it makes it difficult to service students when all these offices is operating in silos. And as I mentioned, a student will want to constantly tell their story over and over again. So without a transitional academy, a system can be put in place on how we can minimize a student or mitigate a student saying they telling their story all over again, where it could be a referral process that happens seamlessly. So just understanding the resources that's on your campus, and maybe creating an advisory board amongst different individuals that's doing similar work on your campus, into possibly a transitional academy or whatever name they want to call it is established there.
Good suggestion.
I would also add into that advisory board Marcus, how you were saying that the student was a vet, and we give a lot of thanks to our vets who serves our country, but we also recognize that there is like a gap in how they're being serviced. So probably asking someone in the Veterans Department to be on the advisory board along with all these other head of departments, along with serving data. One thing that Dr. Boone says was important was making sure you have data up front. So taking a model with the data you have for your campus and having the collaborative effort on campus, especially from that department, would be beneficial. And maybe that can help everyone see how to view the student holistically, versus then, oh, the student is just a vet and a student. No, but they're all these other.
To look at as the collective impact initiative, which highlights what I mentioned. So it's just bringing everyone together and everyone is operating on the same plane. They all going after one goal, which is, to help that student graduate at the end of the day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We still have a few minutes. Any other questions or comments? Feel free to raise your hand or even just jump in. Anything you'd like to share with our presenters today? They really shared a lot of great information with us. So any kind of last thought? Now is the time. And then in a minute or so, I'm going to go ahead and you can also share in the chat if you like. I just wanted to read a comment from Jasmine saying, hoping this is an academy that can be mirrored at BCC, and just was thankful for the presentation and resources. You guys are getting a lot of people are appreciating what you all shared. Susan, go ahead and take a moment to type in the chat. I'm going to share.
And for everyone who sent well wishes to Eternity, we will send it back to her and she would be so grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, Susan, we just couldn't hear your question, but we still have 3 more minutes. So if folks have to, the QR code for the survey is on the screen, but if anybody who needs to jump off, just want to thank you for attending and, just wishing you all a good weekend and thank you. And I want to thank our presenters as well. They did such a wonderful job for us today, and just really appreciate everything that was shared with everyone today. I think it's very inspirational and empowering, and all in the service of supporting our students. So just thank you for that as well.
Thank you. Continue to come out of COVID. It's not over, meaning the impact is still there. So these are going to be continuous challenges that we're going to keep seeing with our students. So
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone.
oh that's awesome.
Oh, Dr. Boone, Susan's worked with you in the past. I don't know if you see it in the chat.
Hey, how you doing, Susan? Yeah, we was in Office of Admissions. Yes.
See, it's a small world, right?
Very small.
Thank you for sharing that, Susan. That's awesome.
Yes. Boone is very committed, very, very committed.
That is very cool to see all our connections, right? All right, folks, it's 12 o'clock, so I'll let you all go. If you didn't get a chance to scan the QR code, don't worry about it. I will follow up with an email. So just take care and have a good weekend, everyone.